And that night, John Bonham said to me, he said, you know, Jeff wants to play with you and Tim. Here's Jeff's number. So that's what started it. You know, I mean, Jeff didn't even come up to us and say it was John Bonham, you know, because Jeff was always so shy, you know.
So he had this really long hair, and it was covered in sort of grease and oil from one of his cars, who had been underneath it, you know, tampering with it. But what a great player, and he played a variety of styles.
Hi, I'm Paul Stevenson from Vintage Rock Pod, and I wanted to do just a short video just to reflect on the sad passing of the legend that is Jeff Beck. Now, I sadly haven't interviewed Jeff, I never got the chance to, but I have interviewed a couple of his former bandmates who you've just seen short clips of there. Jim McCarty from the Yardbirds. I mean, Jim was in the same band as Jimmy Page and Eric Clapton, as well as Jeff Beck. So you're going to hear a little bit more about what Jim has to say about his time working with Jeff. And also Carmine Appice, a wonderful drummer who worked with Jeff in Beck, Bogert and Appice. So you'll hear all about that as well from Carmine. It's very, very sad to lose such a legend, someone who's been around for what seems like forever. I mean, the Yardbirds was obviously the mid-60s, and he was a session musician before then. And even in the last few months, he was touring and recording new music, and we'd seen him on stage with Johnny Depp and things like that. So it is such a sad loss to the musical world. He is one of the greatest guitarists of all time. But anyway, here you go. Here's some clips of some of his former bandmates and talking about Jeff.
So he moved on, and we got Jeff. But we asked Jimmy Page first of all if he would join, because he used to come and see us sometimes, and he always used to like the band. And he said, "Well, I'm doing a lot of sessions, and I'm quite happy doing that. But why don't you try my understudy who does some sessions for me, Jeff Beck?" So we tried him, and he was immediately a success. He was different to Eric. He was very sort of rough and ready compared to Eric, very tailored and everything. And he sort of had this really long hair, and it was covered in sort of grease and oil from one of his cars, who had been underneath it, tampering with it. But what a great player, and he played a variety of styles, and it really suited us, and it suited us for going forward, and making those blues covers quite different, and then doing our own songs. So he was great, and then finally it all got too much for him. Well, before that, Paul Samuel Smith left, because it was sort of quite difficult traveling around. He got quite stressed out, and he left because he wanted to become a producer. And by that time, Jimmy Page was very happy to join the group. So he came in and replaced Paul on bass. And for a while he played bass, and then we thought that this is silly, we'll swap over with Chris. And so Chris went on to bass, very brave, and the two of them played lead for a while, which was very up and down, but sometimes brilliant and sometimes a bit of a mess, but it was something to remember anyway. And then in the end, the stress got too much for Jeff, because he was always very, very nervous, very wound up sort of guy. And so he left the group, and we were a four-piece until the very end.
Someone else I want to hear about as well, Jeff Beck. I mean, you worked with Tim and Beck and yourself, BBA.
Yeah.
Short-lived project initially, but talk to me about Jeff. I mean, what was he like to write with and perform with?
Jeff was a very, I don't know, he wasn't very outgoing, a lot of people, but a little introverted, but a really nice guy. I loved Jeff. We were both into cars. We were all into cars, me, him, and Tim, and motorcycles. And Tim was motorcycle. Me and Jeff were cars. And, he was a great player. He loved me and Tim. And when the album came out, he had it mixed with Don Nix, and I said, man, why is the guitar so low? I want to hear the guitar. He goes, I want to hear you and Tim, you know. But you know, we have a friendship that goes, you know, way back to 1968 when we met him. He was he had the same attorney as Vanilla Fudge, and we did a Coke commercial that a guitar player got sick. So Jeff was in town, and Jeff played on the Coke commercial with us, you know, and that was great because he was just coming up. You know, it was Jeff Beck Group. The Truth album was just coming out.
Yep.
And, you know, he wasn't that famous yet. And other than the Yardbirds, you know, and it was great when he played Wah Wah, and I think it was awesome. So the rest of the Fudge guys were going, wow, this is awesome. And then we found out in '69 from John Bonham that Jeff wanted to play with me and Tim, you know, because we did a gig in Long Island. It was a Jeff Beck group. It was a weird bill. Edwin Hawkins Singers, you know, Oh Happy Day.
No.
I don't know if you even know that song.
I don't think so.
It was a big hit, like I don't know, Christian kind of song, you know.
Okay.
And then 10 years after, Jeff Beck Group and Vanilla Fudge, you know. And then when Jeff Beck Group was on, Zeppelin went up and jammed with him right before we went on. And come on, how do you follow that, you know? And then that's when we were on tour with them, and they were bigger. The album was gold, you know. And that night, Jeff Beck, John Bonham said to me, he said, you know, Jeff wants to play with you and Tim. Here's Jeff's number. So that's what started it, you know. I mean, Jeff didn't even come up to us and say it was John Bonham, you know, because Jeff was always so shy, you know. He's gotten better now, you know, but he's good. And, you know, we went to a lot. I originally played on Blow by Blow. It didn't work out. I remember I used to listen to Mahavishnu Orchestra and Billy Cobham albums in the car with me and Jeff driving. And Tim was in the other car with the tour manager. And, you know, and we both loved that stuff. And, you know, and then when Blow by Blow was rehearsing for that, we didn't know if it was going to be a Beck Appice album because Tim basically quit. And, you know, it wasn't a good leaving, let's put it that way, the DBA thing.
Yeah.
Departure, I should say. But I love Jeff, and I hung out with him in England for 3 months. I played with also, after I rehearsed with Jeff, I would play with Ray Gomez and Rick Gretsch from Traffic.
Yes.
And eventually I brought Rick over to US, and we put the KGB band together with Mike Bloomfield, you know. But yeah, so I was rehearsing with Jeff, and we were doing Blow by Blow, and in the studio with George Martin, I cut like 6 tracks, and we couldn't work a deal out with Epic and Jeff's manager and all that. So I ended up not being on the record, and I was like bummed out because I really loved that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and then the record, I went back to LA and I actually got a record deal myself doing the same stuff. I got Max Middleton on keyboard and Verdine White from Earth, Wind & Fire and Jimmy Haslip on bass and Dick Wagner on guitar, and it was instrumental, half instrumental and half vocal. It's just like Blow by Blow. But CBS wouldn't release it. So they said, I'm not known for that. And then Blow by Blow comes out and skyrockets to the charts. I was like, you know, I said, I was on that record, you know. But hey, life goes on, you know.